Good evening, everyone. Oh my goodness, good evening. Welcome to Ben's Camera Show. And a very, very exciting show we have for you tonight. That's right, this one has, well, I wouldn't say it's brought me out of retirement, but it brought my hiatus to a rapid end. Not only because I said I'd be back in September, and in London here, we've still got 5 hours of September left, so I've kept my promise to you all, but also because some extremely exciting developments have come out recently on the Super 8 grapevine, which is not a large grapevine, but it's getting bigger all the time. And my guest tonight and the feature we have tonight may well expand it even more, because we are back looking at Kodachrome, and we are back talking to Adrian Cousins later, because Adrian, well, he's been doing some work. He's been doing some very, very interesting research into the whole Kodachrome thing, and especially looking at, is there a way of developing it in color? Because as we all know, well, maybe we don't know. In fact, before I get into the nitty gritty and everything, let's have a little bit of a backstory here. I know that, you know, this Ben's Camera Show is where like the serious camera people like to hang out. But some of you are a little less experienced and might not have heard about all the stuff we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm going to bring you up to speed now with Kodachrome, right? Obviously, enough inquiries have come in on various, you know, Facebook groups and everything from people who've discovered an old camera that had an unused box of Kodachrome with it. That enough people still don't know the full story behind it, and the fact that as of was it 2010, no professional lab in the world still develops it, and that's because Kodachrome is an extremely notoriously difficult film to develop in color. Kodachrome was, it came out in, gosh, was it 1938? Oh, I ought to have looked this up now, but I think it was just before World War II that it came out. Someone's going to correct me on this. In fact, let's see a picture of the first box of Kodachrome as it looked when it came out. Here it is. Well, I'm in the way, aren't I? So let me go to my my box over here, and here I go, and ping, here I go. Right. So that's what the first box of Kodachrome looked like. A lovely Art Deco looking, lots of colors on it and everything. And you would obviously shoot that and send it off to the developing place. And the developing place would develop it with huge vats of toxic chemicals provided by Kodak. No one made the chemicals themselves. They were sent to them by Kodak, because the way Kodachrome works is that it has 3 layers of black and white emulsion, possibly even 4 layers. What am I talking about? 3 layers with what's called color couplers built into the emulsion, which are special chemicals that only react to certain colors, and the colors themselves came from the developing process, where those colors that we all know and love from Kodachrome, the famous Kodachrome colors, were added added by the lab with something called dye couplers, which basically the dye will only attach to the dye coupling chemicals within each emulsion layer. What the hell am I talking about? Okay. The color picture is made up of yellow, magenta, cyan, and black layer. And those are put through the process in what's called a K14 process, which is the color Kodachrome process, which is it's called K14 because I believe there are 14 steps to it. And it's a very involved process. We can see here some of it. It not only involves special dyes, but special light as well. exposure. Here are the 4 layers. I showed all this in my previous Kodachrome show. And here are the layers, one to show you side by side. And then red light is exposed through the base after the remjet has come off. And that then the developer, the cyan developer goes through. And then there's blue light exposed from the other side. And then the yellow goes through the yellow pot, the yellow tank, as it were. And then the magenta dye, they've nicely said that there's no light exposure to the magenta, something called a nucleating agent. And finally, after bleaching and after fixing, you have your 4-color process, your 3 colors and a black and white layer. I hope I'm right about the black and white layer. Luckily, I've got the world expert coming on later to correct me on that. Already the usual suspects have arrived in the chat room. Barry Steinlager, John Oates, Tio Mani's here, and some new faces as well. Some people I haven't seen before. Anyway, welcome all of you to Ben's Camera Show. My name's Ben Slotover, and we are talking about Kodachrome tonight. But what have I been doing since the last show? I know season 3 has been beset with various hiatuses and what was the word, hiati? But what have I been doing? Well, I went back to doing live workshops where me and a bunch of people spent a weekend. And I taught them how to shoot and develop their own Super 8. We used UN54, we used Fomapan, and here we go, that's Kodachrome, the sort of the brownish one there. I showed them how to develop Kodachrome in monochrome, in black and white. A bit of an outdated process maybe after tonight. So we had a great deal of fun. I hope to be doing more of these workshops in November at the same place. Look at that shot. I love that shot. That's such a great shot. That was on a Bolex 155. That some shots there, slightly unbleached. So yeah. So let's just have a look at these now. Oh yeah, my Bolea is not working up very well with the high speed motion stuff. As you can see, it had a couple of issues there. And yeah, so that was my workshop. I did that. That was very nice. And as I said before, Kodachrome, since the demise of commercial color processing, could only be done in black and white for the last 10 years. Everyone's been talking, everyone who's said, you know, can Kodachrome be developed has been given this kind of rebuff. And in fact, here is
meeting outside.
Here's some Kodachrome sound that I developed, just to show you what black and white developing Kodachrome looks like. It's a nice monochrome picture. I did this in Caffeinol, this one. And for sound film, I think it did all right. Let's just have a quick look at some Kodachrome and sound before we get the big guns out.
Of the city, even though we might all be dead in about a month or two.
Aha, the joke's on me. I'm still alive.
The Tower of London.
Oh god, yeah, that was a miserable winter we had. The lockdown winter when all you could do is walk around the streets and freeze your bum off. Oh, this is close. Lovely sound there. So yes, this is the state of play with Kodachrome in black and white. In fact, while we're at it, let's see how Kodachrome done in black and white looks when it's actually really, really well done. That's let's have a look. Yeah, so this was developed by my guest tonight. Some lovely Kodachrome. Let's have some. Should we have some music with that? Oh, I didn't get any music lined. Oh, we do. Of course, we have music. Nice. Yeah, that's the best that Kodachrome can look like, really. After can you hear me? Yes, that's about as good as Kodachrome is going to look. Have I? Have I lost sound? No, maybe not. Okay. Okay. So, that's that. Very nice. Oh. Right. So that's a preamble. That's the preamble. Let's go back to what the heck is going on with my OBS. It's all a bit. There we go. That's better. Can you all hear me? Let me just do a quick check on the sound because one of my levels doesn't look quite right. Let me just double check that that's all working. Loud and clear, says Tio Manny. Thank you, Manny. That's better. There we go. Yeah, can you? Yes. I'm coming through. Good. I'll edit that out afterwards. So, let's get the background back on. So I know you've all been waiting for. Some of you who've been clued in to the Super 8 world have seen some very, very, very exciting stills and a little bit of picture, a little bit of image, of moving image come through from my guest tonight. He is the unabashed, undisputed world champion of home development. The amount of innovations he has come up with are staggering, and I've got to say, outside the ability of me so far, and I'm sure most of the people in the world as well, because this 69 wavy waves. Was the sound at 18 or 24? That was at 18 frames per second, and yeah, the sound was pretty good. Anyway, let me carry on with my introduction here. So my guest coming up now is, of course, none other than the famous Adrian Cousins. Let's get him up on the. Oh, I see. I've got this thing covering him. Oops. And let's see. Let me do that better. I'll do that again. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Ben's Camera Show to show us some absolutely astonishing developments, literally developments in the Kodachrome developing world. Ladies and gentlemen, Adrian Cousins. Adrian, I think you're mute. No, you're not muted. Hello.
No, it's a bit disconcerting. I can see two of myself now.
Oh,
that's all right.
Okay. Better than none of yourself, I guess. Thanks for coming back on.
Pleasure.
We last spoke. Gosh, was it in March or April this year? Was it last year? God, it's been a while. I started doing this in October, and I think you're on episode 3. So I guess it was about a year ago, just under a year ago, that we spoke. And you just impressed the hell out of me with what you'd managed then. And I believe you've been working on this ever since.
Yeah. It's been this year. Normally what happens is since 2018, around August time, when the light starts to get a little bit flaky, I switched to developing Kodachrome, which is what I've been doing. But this time, I just carried on basically working on it as a project, and I shot about 7 or 8 cartridges of Super 8 because I decided that I'd got to the stage where, irrespective of whether I managed to produce anything that looked like proper full color, it's had quite a nice quality to it, and I quite like the idea of adding your own colors to the developing process. And so, I decided that I was going to shoot some Kodachrome and I was going to develop it and just see where it went.
Well, the last time we spoke, this is let's get us both into the screening room here. This is what you showed me last time, about a year ago, using, I believe, Rockland Polytoner. And while we can't deny that there's colors, They may not have all come out in the right places.
Wow.
And even that, let me freeze frame this. It looks a bit like the cyan and the magenta are sort of fighting for space. And instead of like being sort of layered, they looks like it's either one or the other in this. And I've also got a picture. Oops, I've got a picture of something you put up recently on online. Where, let me see where it is. Maybe I'm getting slightly out of sequence here, but where is it? Oops, there, this one.
Yeah.
And that was just black and white film tinted. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, it's plus X.
Plus X. Right.
From the late 60s, early 70s, which I developed already as black and white reversal.
Yeah.
And then what you can do is you can stick that film in a ferrocyanide bleach and bleach it, which turns the silver back into halide salts, and then you expose it. And then rather than tinting, it's coupling, which is a different thing. So what you do is you put it in a developer that contains a color developing agent and a coupler. And wherever the silver develops, the developing agent is oxidized by that process of development, and the oxidized developer combines with the coupler in the vicinity of where the silver is. So wherever the silver, you get color. So it's not tinting in the sense that you're actually targeting just the areas.
So the plus X had a coupler that coupled with everything. Right?
Well, it's single color. Yeah. So
okay.
You're not using 3 layers. So what this experiment was about exploring was 2 things really. We've got the couplers that are provided by Polytoner, and we've got the couplers that are mentioned in the 1938 patent for Kodachrome. Mm-hmm. And I was using those with CD1, which is an early color developing agent, whereas up until now, practically everybody has been using CD3 or CD4. Yeah. And what I found is that actually if you use CD1, you get much better density. You get actually the colors are closer to what they should be. So moving from left to right, you've got the polytone coupler for magenta, which is actually quite red, pinky color. You've got the Kodachrome original magenta, which is a chemical called PMP, or edavarone, which is an anti-stroke drug. And next to that, you've got the next, which is an orangey colour, which is, again, a polytone coupler. It's the polytone yellow, but you can see it's quite orange. Then next to that, you've got a coupler called ethyl acetoacetate, which is actually, it's used as a food flavouring, or it's used in perfumes. And the next one is the yellow, which is from the original Kodachrome patent, acetoacetanilide. And then next to that, you've got the cyan from the original patent, which is a proper cyan. And then next to that, right at the end, you've got the polytoner cyan, which is actually quite blue. Right. So you've got, I basically used a basic color developer containing CD1 for all of those, and which is, so the couplers added to the developer, and then you use it to develop the film, and wherever there is silver, you get the color. So because it's only plus X, so it's only got 1 layer. So you've got a single color for each of them, and what this really shows is that the expectation of getting proper full color images using the polytoner couplers is a little misplaced, because you've got rather, you've got a lot of red in there. You've got excess of red in the magenta, you've got an excess of red in the yellow, and you've got very little green in the cyan. So it's actually a blue. So you're really looking at red, orange, and blue, which is not ideal for producing. Well, you can't really produce great color, full color images for those. So that proved two things: that CD1 is the correct developing agent to use, because all of these are designed for use for CD1, these couplers, and that you actually do get the correct colors required for making proper full color images by using the original Kodachrome patent couplers. And Kodachrome came out in 1936, but it used it used a very different process, which was even worse, than the one that followed, where you basically had to keep bleaching the layers. So you bleach it all cyan, then bleach the top two layers, and you'd color it all magenta, and then you bleach the layer above that, and then you finally do the final level. So you have to be really, really precise with your bleach timings, so that the bleach diffused down through the layers correctly. It was a nightmare. So, and then in 1938 they brought out the one that we know now, really, which is which uses re-exposure, selective re-exposure, to get the reversal.
Right.
In the image, and there isn't a black layer. There's what you do is you develop it like normal, just like E6 developing color reversal. You develop the film in a black and white developer first, and those areas, what you're doing is making whatever develops in the black and white developer won't then develop in the color area. So you're basically defining your areas that are going to be transparent with the first developer. Okay. And then you get black when you've got yellow, cyan, and magenta all together, and all together layered on top of each other. That's when you get black. Okay.
So there's no like first developer black and white developer like with E6.
Yes, there is.
There is.
Exactly like E6, is that you start with a black and white first developer, just like E6.
Okay.
And as with E6, the areas that what you develop with the first developer, that just develops silver. It doesn't develop any color. It just develops the silver, and then that silver is bleached out, and that leaves a blank bit of film.
Well, we're gonna go through the whole process from start to finish, so people can. Try and follow us here. Some nice comments coming through, and some Stas Vlad says, "What you are doing in the 21st century with the technologies of the last century is very inspiring." That's very nice. I can agree with that. And Barry Steinlager says, "Do the additive colors need to be done in that specific order?" I think,
in the 1938 patent, they're not done in the order that they're done in the later patents. Right. Yeah, they're doing it slightly different order, but they do the red exposure through the base first.
Well, let's start at the beginning with when you said you shot 8 or so cartridges of Kodachrome. Was that Kodachrome 40? I'm assuming it was Kodachrome 40. Yeah. Right. What do you know what the expiry date was on those?
They range from 90 something.
Okay.
There's a few from the 80s, late 80s, 87 through to 2004. The one that I developed recently was 2004. But I think they've all. I've got suspicion that they've all been relatively well stored, because that's more important than the expiry date, to be honest with you.
Sure. Sure. Were they all from the same block, or the same?
There's a few from you get these 3-packs. So there's 3 that was from a 3-pack, and then the others, they came in little parcels of 1 or 2. So I've developed a few of them in black and white, and they work. So if they work in black and white without too much fog, you've got a decent chance of doing of getting a color. Getting a color image. So part of the process really involved making a short test in black and white first to check that you know that the film is actually going to work before you spend hours.
Right. These films look like 16mm here. Did you shoot much 16mm?
16mm, yeah. Those that plus X stuff is 16mm plus X. It's actually a French TV version of plus X.
But you didn't use any 16mm Kodachrome in your experiments, is that right?
Not this year. Up until now, everything I've done with Kodachrome has been 16mm because the quality, I just suspected that the quality would be just too poor for Super 8. You just wouldn't get the detail and so on. But I decided to go for Super 8, and I've made a machine that can do Super 8 re-exposures, where you can just take the spools off and change it to 16mm. So I will be shooting going back to 16mm the first opportunity, really.
Okay. So let's go through some of your process here. Now the process, it starts here. What are we looking at? That's exposure. That's just your first exposure in the camera. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we've covered that. Oh yes, except for which camera did you use?
Oh, it's all on the Bollier cameras. This one, I can't remember whether this was a 508 or a 408 that I used.
And what speed did you shoot it at?
Oh, I shot it at, well, if it was a 508, it'd be 45, and if it was a 408, it'd be 50.
Okay,
frames.
So pretty close to box speed.
Oh, sorry. What? Sorry, I thought you meant what frame rate.
Right.
With this, I shot it at with the stuff that we're going to see. I think I shot it at 32 with a 85A filter on. I think 25 with a 25 ASA is probably better, actually, which is what I'll do in future. But I wanted to try and keep it as close to box speed as possible.
Why did you use an 85 filter? Out of interest.
Because it's tungsten balanced film.
Okay.
And I'm shooting it in daylight, so you just have to. You wouldn't do that obviously if you're shooting it in black and white, but if you're shooting it in color, you have to treat it. You have to do it as you would do if you were using it, and Kodachrome was still available for processing, and stick an 85 filter on there.
Right. Okay. And you shot 8 whole cartridges. Was that of all the same kind of material?
Yeah, it's the same stuff that I always shoot.
Okay.
So there's usually flowers and stuff that's got colour in and whatever. I think I have done a bit of a colour card. Amongst some of them, I just resent doing colour cards because everybody does a colour card, and then who've ever done Kodachrome, they do a colour card and then you never see anything else. And I'd much rather film my son than colour chart. So that's what I
try and have a color card just somewhere in the shot, but it's not the only thing that I shoot, because like you said, where's the sort of the joy in that, just seeing color card footage. Now, am I right in assuming you did this in a Lomo tank?
Yes, using a Lomo tank and a changing bag with a PVC tubing frame inside.
Oh yeah, yep.
The tent.
The classic setup that I myself have used as well.
Kitchen processing.
Now, first developer, there's black and white. What did you use for that?
I used the patent for the 1970 75, 72 patent by
Can you show
Dick
us?
Benson. Let me have a look.
You were threatening to hold stuff up to the screen.
I was threatening to hold, so that's it there. Look, you can't really see it very much.
Wow! And you
it lists the black and white developer is just a methyl hydroquinone developer. It's got hydroquinone monosulfonate in it as well, which is in the E6 first developer instead of So it's quite a nice first developer.
Did you and so you put all those, you mixed it all up yourself out of all those separate things?
Yeah. So you go through
Yeah, I was going to ask about we'll get on to the colors in a minute. So yeah, we'll just get back to the diagram here. So okay, so that's the how long, how many minutes was it in the
right.
black
So
and white?
it's a great developer, actually. It's 27 degrees. What I wanted to do is get as close to a standard with as much of the processes as I can, because there's so many wild cards in there and so many variables.
Yeah.
So I followed the patent and made the patent first developer and gave it the 3 minutes 40 seconds at 27 degrees. Which
Okay,
is,
everyone make notes. 3 minutes 40 seconds at 27. 27.
27 degrees. The whole the patent is all done at 27 degrees.
Really, the whole process, or there's this one?
The whole process of the first patent. Actually, and I mean, I just realised when you look through it that actually what they've done is they've carried over a lot of things from the previous Kodachrome process, which was K12.
Right.
And that film, like K2 is the Kodachrome 2. You see the cartridges, and that required a pre-hardener.
Right.
Right. So the formulas reflect that, but they dropped that when they moved to the process itself. There's no pre-hardener stage in the actual K14 process, so they treated the film before it left the factory to harden it, rather than doing it in the process.
Did the temps go up to 40 degrees later in the?
Yeah, when the process went to when they actually started to make it into a sort of automated machine process, they upped the temperature to 38 degrees.
38, right.
So it's all very, very quick. It's
okay, so let's so this has all been obviously in the dark in the Lomo tank. And after the black and white, we've got this, which is it says red flash. And it says on the diagram, after wash, red light re-exposure through the base. Now, for those who need some some explanation here, the base, I don't actually have a piece of film here to show you, but the base is the plastic, is the shiny plastic thing that the emulsion is laid onto, correct? And underneath the base is the much maligned horrible remjet, right?
Yeah.
And at this stage, it appears to require red light to be shone into the emulsion through the bottom, through the base, not from the top, but through the bottom. And that means the remjet's got to be got rid of, correct?
Yeah. So this was the initial. This is the first big hurdle you come to, really, with the film. So if the film's been well stored and you can put it through a remjet removal bath, you get it from the ECN2 formula, which is a modern formula. And if the film's been well stored, you put it through that bath, and most of the remjet will just come off when you rinse the film. But there's always some left, and especially with the older films, it tends to stick. So you've then got to, when you've done the first development, you've got to take the film off the spiral.
Still in the dark?
In the dark, yeah, in a changing bag. Oh. You've got to take the film off the spiral and remove the remjet using, I use paint rollers.
Well, we have video here of an unbelievable device.
Yeah. I got a bit carried away. So I'm not using this in anger yet, because actually I found that the hand method with the two, you've got two fingers and one of those rollers on each finger, you run the film through it onto the reel. That works really well. so I haven't got to this. I haven't integrated this into the process yet because I don't really need to. The biggest problem actually is before this is getting the film off the spiral without damaging it, which I've now, there's a method I've come up with that is pretty, seems pretty rock solid for that and very quick. You just, well, you think about the spiral. I should have brought one up with me to show you, but with the film on, you've got the spoked wheel on the top. Yeah. If in the dark, you take the spoked wheel off, and I've got this Perspex disc that's the same, just slightly larger than the Lomo spiral, with a little washer on it, and you put that on top. So you've now got a flat thing on top rather than the spoke thing. You screw the thing back in, you tip it over, all the film falls out of the grooves onto the plain flat surface of the acrylic, and then you can just use it as a spool, and you could spool it off onto another reel. So that's actually turned out to be that's been a big breakthrough, actually, just getting that to work, because it's these little details that are the things that hold and make it difficult.
It's like the moon landing. There's like a million little problems that's got to be sorted out. Tell me, did you have this device in the changing bag, or did you just do it by hand?
I've done it by hand. I mean, that would be pretty. I've worked on this since, and I will probably try it out at some point. And I might change the whole thing, so it's actually it's a flatbed type of thing, which I'll try out. But at the moment, there's the hand method, if you like, is working well, and I've a policy of not introducing machinery unless I have to, really, because.
So I mean, I should have had some props here, but the hand method is like, supposing this wire is the film, you just get your whatever cloth or microfiber, and then you just basically just sort of pull it right through.
The rollers have got they've got a deep pile to them, so which is filled with which obviously soak in photo flow and water, and that the photo flow stops the any remjet adhering to the emulsion side, and the deep pile means that the remjet gets stuck in that rather than so it works quite well. Right,
it's unbelievable to me, because I mean, getting rid of remjet in broad daylight is such a trial for me, at least. But doing it in without even being able to see what you're doing is inconceivable to me. But you've shown it can be done. I think obviously what would be ideal. I mean, I'm just thinking for me, maybe for you, but if you had some kind of light-proof box that had all the rollers and the jets and everything in it already, so you could, I mean, a bit like a continuous processor kind of thing would be would be nice.
I think there's a difference here. The way the process is at the moment, it's sort of inherently hand done. It has to be, because.
Well, we'll get on to that the whole mechanization subject in a minute. Let's go back to the next stage of the process, which after the remjet, we're only on step 3.
The red printing.
Yes, up to the remjet, you've got to shine red light through the base of the film. Now, tell us what kind of red light, because there's red light and there's red light, isn't there?
Yeah. So there's so if you take a look, what I did was, if you look at the for the Kodachrome films, K25, and the two types of K40, the two types of K40 they use an 85A and an 85B filter, depending on which type. You have to expose to a very specific part of the red spectrum, because if you look at the documents that come with these films that explain their sensitivities, there's some graphs on there that actually show which parts of
You
the
mean
spectrum.
inside the box, the piece of paper that you throw away? That...
If you go online, there's
Right.
and search for you can find specifications for these films, as you can for Tri-X and anything else, and they all have these Kodak specifications. They'll all have data about the sensitivity of the film, and the data shows the sensitivity to the various wavelengths of light. Yes, so red light runs from about 600. The wavelength, the size of the wavelength is between 600 nanometers up to around 700 nanometers, and then you're into infrared. The Kodachrome emulsion is most sensitive to red light in the region of 650 nanometers.
How do you measure that kind of thing?
Well, this has been one of the issues with one of the, apart from the developers, one of the big issues, and this is a re-exposure. And there is actually a Kodachrome document, a theory guide, which is for the K-Lab, which was the big machine that you use to process on. And it specifies exactly how much light, and it's measured in microwatt seconds per square centimeter, which is different to lux. Lux is a measurement of how light appears to the human eye, so it's human based, right? So our eyes are tuned for light of around 550 green light. Our eyes work best for green light, and lux values reflect that. So depending on the bandwidth of the light you're looking at, it looks brighter or darker to us. Microwatts per second is a measurement of energy, really, and so it's independent of human perception. It's a much more precise way of doing things.
What kind of device measures, the electromagnetic bandwidth?
Well, there are devices that you can buy, but they're incredibly expensive. But there's a little tiny sensor that is produced by Texas Instruments, or what used to companies called Texas Instruments, that works with the Arduino microprocessor, and a guy called Rob Tillart, who wrote a code library. I wrote to him, and he wrote a code library that you can use with the Arduino and this sensor, so that you can measure the light in microwatt seconds per square centimeter, and it's all adjusted for the wavelength of the light and so on. So the theory document specifies that the red exposure should be 1,000 microwatt seconds per square centimeter through a Corning 2403 red filter. So it specifies the filter as well, because every filter will have its own particular, in terms of which wavelengths of light it lets through and which wavelengths of light it blocks. It will have its own particular curve, if you like, of peak and less light transmission in other regions. So getting those two things together was absolutely key. So combining the measurement of the light with the correct filter. So previously, other people have used if you look at the discussions on the forums, the suggestion was to use a Ratten filter, Kodak Ratten filters, gel filters, and use WR70 for the red, or WR29 for the red. And both of those are not, neither of those are correct in terms of their peaks. Other people have used LEDs, which are quite, you can get LEDs which are 650, 660 nanometers, but they're quite spiky. So there's just one very small band of red light, whereas the actual glass filter that you can get from, it's a company called COP now, who's actually bought Corning. They still produce the filter, and you get that correct filter, and expose the film to 1,000 microwatt seconds per square centimeter through that specific filter.
That hits it right on the nail, does it?
that hits it on the nail.
Right.
So, this was the first time, this piece of film that we'll show, that people have seen, and we'll show the full thing later, this was the first time using this approach, really.
Right.
And so there was no hit and miss with this. I wasn't doing trial or error to get the right values with this. I just followed the theory guide, as it were.
Well, let's see the hardware that you put together to create all of this.
Yeah.
I love this piece of video, not just because of like how sci-fi it looks, but the noise it makes. It even sounds like I'm gonna turn it up a bit, I think. Oh no, it's all the way up. But this sound here.
Can't really hear.
Where was it? Oh, okay, it's a bit low. Anyway, it looks and sounds like something out of Star Trek.
Sounds like a train to me. It sounds like an electric train, which I think is, when they're pulling out the stations, you hear that sort of.
But there's like two tones. There's like there's one that's just continuous and one that's sort of going like it's
exactly. So that is the same thing. Yeah.
So this is the machine for the red and the blue re-exposure.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And there's a little wheel that you can see on the right hand side with what looks like a spokey thing on it. That's actually, when the film's moving, that rotates, and there's an infrared sensor there, and so the black bars block light, and the clear areas let it through, and so that sensor can tell you exactly the rotations per second that the film's moving at, and then you can use the rotations, the RPM, and you can see the width of the length of the area, the glass area, so you can work out exactly how much exposure the film's getting by looking at the RPM.
Oh God! So it has to be a certain number of like seconds, or it can't be.
Yes.
Right.
Well, because so if you want 1,000, if you want, say for instance, the target is 1,000 microwatt seconds per square centimeter. Say for instance, in my case, that light is shining at 575 microwatts per square centimeter. So it's roughly just under 2 seconds of exposure to get that 1,000 microwatts per second.
So you worked all that out with the formula, with the speed, with the rotations per second. And got the film to pass through that exactly for 2 seconds. And it's red. It's red on one side and blue on the other. Is that right?
Yes. So the base. It's got to go through the base. So the top light that you can see there, that's the red one, and that will be shining through the base, and without changing the orientation of the film. So next time it goes through, the opposite side is printed with the blue.
Right. So what does the coloured light actually do to the emulsion?
Right. So so you've got 3 layers of film three layers within the emulsion. Right. Each of those layers.
Oh, I've got the picture here.
Each of those layers are sensitive to. Right. So you've got these. It's a little bit confusing, but you've got red, green, and blue. So that's what you need to focus on. Right. The film has got these 3 layers sensitive. The bottom one is sensitive to red, the middle one is sensitive to green, and the top one is sensitive to blue light. And so what you're doing when you're doing the re-exposure, if you think about normally with, say if you're doing E6 and or a custom E6, for instance, you're doing or black and white, for instance, you just do a white light re-exposure in the reversal process. With Kodachrome, what you do is you shine the red light through the base, and because it's only sensitive, there's only one layer that is sensitive to that color. Only the silver in that layer is exposed to light and then becomes developable.
But why through the base? Why can't it come in through the top if it's not going to affect the layers?
Theoretically, you could. Theoretically, you may be able to do that. The reason why it's going through the base is you want to. because the layer that you're interested in exposing is at the bottom of the pile. If you expose from the top, you're going to go through the blue layer and the green layer, the blue sensitive and the green sensitive layer before you get to the red sensitive layer. If you go through the base, you're not going through any emulsion layers that are sensitive. You're going straight to the point where you need to be, which is the cyan layer. Now, those top layers are not sensitive to, well, they are a little bit sensitive to the red light, actually, but by going through, they're not actually designed to be sensitive to red light. So theoretically, you could do it from the top, right. But actually in practice, it turns out that, you can actually, there is a little bit of absorption in those other layers. So by going through the base, you rule that out.
Okay, so we're still in the dark. I mean, the changing bag with this machine now, and after passing it all the way through and having it exposed, having the red light exposed along through the base, I assume we can't go into the light yet, right?
Because, no.
Right.
I put it in a little box, right. And so I use two changing bags now, one dry and one wet. The machine goes in the dry one. So I then put it back in a little box, go over to the other tent that's got my Lomo tank in it that I've originally taken the film off, and then I have to put the film back on the spiral, put the wet film back on the spiral in the dark, before I can develop it in the cyan developer.
Right. So after the red light comes the cyan developer. That's this stage here we're looking at. Here.
Yeah.
How hard is it to get a wet film onto a Lomo tank?
It's actually very easy.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the easiest parts of the process because if you do it, if you've got I've got a set of rewinds in there. So I put the film on it's on a spool, and you actually just press your thumb against the film, the base of the film, when you're putting it on. So it's actually, you're not touching the emulsion. So that's relatively straightforward.
Does the wetness of the film somehow kind of lubricate it a bit? Does that make any difference?
Not really. No.
Not really. Okay. All right. Well, let's go. Okay. So the film's has had the red light through the base onto the Lomo, and now cyan developer.
Right. So what you do is that your developers are in two parts. Yeah. You have to have the developing agent. So if you make a liter of developing agent with the developer with the developing agent in, you have those little pots that you saw in one of the there we are. That's mixing, and you can see behind them you've got you've got three large 1 litre cans behind them. And you've got the three little ones at the front. And just before you add the developer to the Lomo tank, you put the colour coupler into the developing agent. So the little one you pour into the big one on the magnetic stirrer there. Give it 30 seconds to a minute to mix, and then you put it straight into the developing tank and start the development process. This is in the light because you've got in the tank, you're nice and safe, so you can develop. It's 12 minutes at 20 degrees.
12 minutes, 20 degrees. Okay, and a question came through from Manny, who I think we already answered. He said, how long does each layer take to re-expose? I think you said two seconds.
Well, it's obviously if you've got 50 feet. So, and the aperture that you're passing it in front of is 150 millimeters. So, and it's about 50 RPM. So it's about 3 or 4 minutes to get the whole film exposed, red printed, if you like.
Right. Like rewinding a film on a Wolverine. It takes,
I wouldn't know.
Goes at a steady pace. I have to ask, where did you get these dyes? Did you mix them up yourself, or is there some source for them?
Yes, I had to. Well,
I mean, you said about the big and the little and everything.
Yeah,
but
well, the colour developer is the colour developing agent is sodium sulfite, sodium carbonate, some bromide, some thiocyanate, and CD1 developer. And there's various amounts in each of those developing agents. And then the couplers are actually, and this is the big plus, the big breakthrough, if you like. The couplers are commonly available chemistry. They're not that commonly available, but they're easy to acquire, and they're made for other things. So the cyan developer is a substance called orthophenylphenol, which is actually a fungicide in common use. And it's actually I think it's still legal in Spain to use it to on fruit, but it's so it's that's Dow make it in vast quantities, and of course you can get it from China.
Right.
And compared to so I mean, if you think of it, the couplers that they used in the modern version of Kodachrome, I tried buying them, and literally it's hundreds and hundreds. Well, first they quoted hundreds of pounds for a few milligrams, and then it went up to thousands.
Oh.
So there's absolutely no way it's economically viable unless you've got a massive company like Kodak making huge quantities of these things. It's not viable. They only exist in the sense that specialist companies that produce for labs will make them to order, and in small quantities. You know, the patent calls for 1 to 2 grams, and they were talking about £6,000 for 10 milligrams. So it's completely unfeasible.
Wow. Yeah.
And you know, if you go back through all the couplers that Kodak have used over the years, they're all very obscure, and you can't get them.
Yeah,
So
I imagine.
when you get to the 1938 patent, right at the beginning of the history of colour film, really, that you find using, and I suppose this is because it was invented by 2 musicians working in a basement, you find that they're using chemistry that is actually, well, the blue is the cyan is a fungicide. The magenta is a anti-stroke drug, and the yellow is a very common precursor to yellow dyes, which is commonly used. All 3 of them are available in reasonable cost, reasonable quantities.
That's amazing. An anti-stroke drug and a fungicide, and a yellow. Some comments about my sound levels. I fixed that. I accidentally hit the wrong slider. You should be able to hear me all a bit better now. Oh my God, we've still got a way to go here. We've done the cyan developer. Then, well, through the re-exposure machine. Again, this is the blue side.
Yeah.
So we're still in the dark, I guess. Yeah.
Still in the dark, and this time it's 230 microwatt seconds per square centimeter. So less than a quarter of the red.
Ah, interesting.
And this is actually quite interesting point to bring out, the difference between lux and microwatt seconds per square centimeter. So if I take a lux reading, right, of the light, the red light, that's 1,000 microwatts per second. 1,000 microwatts of that red light works out at about 500 lux. Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at the blue light, which is only 230 microwatts a second, if you take a lux reading of that, it's thousands. It's much higher. Because the blue light is much more visible to our eyes than the red light. So this is why lux readings are not appropriate. You have to build a little machine, cheap little machine, it might add, that can read in microwatts.
Cheryl Hess is in the room. Hi, Cheryl. She's asking, did the chemical makeup of the film stock itself change with the changing of the developing process?
Well, I assume so. Looking at the patents, I mean, I'd definitely it's going to be the case with comparing 1938 to 1978. There's going to be a big change.
Yeah.
So I'd say, yeah, definitely.
Right.
But they are still the same sort of thing, really. Right. It's still silver that is being developed and exposed to light, and it's still couplers that you're using. So the basic principles are the same.
Right.
The structure, the actual exact composition of the film itself would have changed.
Right. Well, we've got the next stage, yellow developer. So after it's been in the been blue flashed, you load it once again into the Lomo spiral. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then put it through the yellow developer for how long?
Let me think. Yes, it's 10 minutes at 20 degrees in the yellow.
Right. And then drain that, and I guess I'm assuming you got to wash everything in between.
There's all the washes and everything. You've got to wash things in between. And that's my favourite bit after that, because you can then take the lid off the tank once you've washed it. You've done your red exposure, you've done your blue exposure, and this is like, I've just taken the lid off. I've got a couple of bright video lights up there. I've put the kettle on. And I'm going to have a cup of tea, because it's a long process. So you need to build a break in there, and this is the perfect point. You can take it out, and normally this is you can see whether it's going to work or not.
I'm just thinking the British K14 process is actually K15, because there's the tea break involved as well.
It's actually 23 steps.
Okay. 24 with the tea.
24, yeah.
So here we've taken the lid off, and from now on everything's out in the open.
You can do it in the light, yeah. And so that I'll have my cup of tea and I'll give it a twizzle, and I'll turn it over and do the underside, and then now I could use this. I could use and I was going to use a developer, a fogging agent, stannous chloride, which is what they put in E6 developer to basically develop to make the magenta layer.
That's what they're talking about here.
The green, that green layer sandwiched in between a developed layer of silver in the bottom, and a developed layer of silver on the top, and it's sandwiched in between. So you have to give it quite a lot of light exposure to get through.
So are you saying you can use white light as a substitute?
Yeah. Because the thing is, there's so many chemical baths in this, right? So before I resort to producing another chemical bath to use to do the fogging, I'd like to at least explore or try doing it with light. Because it's cheaper, it's safer, it's just
why not? If you can cut out a chemical bath,
and I get a tea break, so that's.
And then we've got the bleaching. What's that? Silver to silver plus.
So yes, you do your magenta. You do a wash after the magenta. So now you've got 3 layers, and in those layers, 3 layers containing red. Cyan, yellow, and magenta dyes, and the silver. So if you leave the silver in, light won't be able to, because it'll be solid silver. Light won't be able to get through.
Right,
so you have to remove the silver. So the first thing you do is you transform the silver back into halides, into silver salts, using the ferrocyanide bleach.
Ferrocyanide, you say?
Yes.
Okay.
The bleach, and that's in the ferrocyanide bleach is in both patents. It's in the 1938 one, and it's in the 1970 whatever it was patent. And the thing about the ferrocyanide is that with the production of colour isn't entirely complete until that process of putting it through the bleach, because the bleach basically completes the oxidation of the colours from their what I call leuco dyes.
Okay. So how long do you leave it in the bleach for? Is it open-ended?
I'm using. I started using the clip we're going to see. I used the VNF bleach and VNF fix. I heated it up to about 30 something, 34, and gave it 3 minutes. But I've dropped that now, and I've switched back to what they're suggesting in the 38 patent, and I'm using very, very basic bleach and a very, very basic fix. So it's
that's the
8 minutes bleach and 6 minutes fix at 24 degrees.
Brilliant. 8 minutes bleach and 6 minutes fix. Is this regular hypo?
Yeah. The first one I used was the VNF bleach is ammonium thiosulfate, and so it's supposed to be a lot faster. But there's a problem. We'll come to it when we look at the film. And so now I switched to a very, very basic. It's just thiosulfate, sodium thiosulfate, and then water.
Okay. Well, maybe it's time we had a look at some results. Should we go straight to visual? I mean, straight to moving picture, because I've got some of your stills.
Let's have a look at the movie.
The movie. Okay, here we go. Drum roll, everyone. Here is. Whoops! No, not that. Let's get rid of that.
Tea time.
Yes. Okay. Here we go. So,
test one. Yeah.
This is after all of that, and then drying, and there we go. Color.
The red line down the right-hand side is because I put the film on the spiral the wrong way around, so the emulsion was facing in. So that prevented that part of the.
I'm going to freeze frame that for a second. So that's where the remjet didn't get cleaned off.
No, it's because I put the film on. I thought it was remjet to begin with. It's too even for the remjet. I think because I put the film on the spiral, the wrong way round, so the emulsion was in. So when I put it in the cyan developer didn't reach that part.
Oh, it didn't quite get to the top.
Which is why you've got yellow and magenta. Yellow and magenta make red, which is why you've got a red line down the side.
Right. And I mean, there's no denying that this is a color picture, and I'm really a combination of astonished and impressed that in, I don't know, what has it been, 10 years since they stopped doing it, and in that time, all that research you've done has actually come up with the color Kodachrome, everyone.
So this was the first attempt, and it's the first time using the machine, first time using the chemistry, and there were loads of things went wrong. I put the sensor for the infrared sensor on that little wheel in a really stupid place, actually, and so I had to change that and adjust the machine. So this next section was test 2, and this is using what I was testing here was immediate second use of the developer, and this is where I changed the design of the red printer, so I could so I got much more even movement through the machine of the film. What I did wrong was when I got the film on the dryer drying, I noticed it was a bit silvery still. So I thought, I'll wait for that to dry and I'll put it through the fix again. And before I did that, it looked very much like the last clip, but better. and I put it in this ferrocyanide. I put it in this ammonium thiosulfate fix which I'd let drift up to about 42 degrees or something, and it just basically destroyed the cyan layer. So there was cyan, but I destroyed it. So
well, I mean, the main thing is you know what to do next time.
Yes. So I switched to a much cooler and more, and I used the sodium thiosulfate bleach that they suggest in the patent, and so the next tests will be done using those, really.
Well, I mean, it's it's splitting hairs at this point, because what we're seeing, and then people are going mad in the chat box. They're saying, T.O. Manny says, "Holy smokes! Never thought I would see new Kodachrome color," and it is hallelujah. Some say, yeah. I queued up the appropriate. It's been done, everyone. 10 years since Dwayne's shut up shop, and Adrian has done it. This is amazing. I've got to say, this is like Andrew Wiles solving Fermat's last theorem. I would put that up there as an accomplishment. I mean, you've been working away God knows how many hours.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone out there who has said, and I've seen it a lot, has written, oh yeah, Kodachrome can't be done in color anymore. They're all wrong now. Everyone is going to have to put an asterisk next to that. They're going to have to go back and redo their comments, or from now on, they're going to have to say Kodachrome is nearly impossible to do in color, except for Adrian. It's really amazing. I mean, I've heard this for years and years. Obviously, over 10 years, that you will never see Kodachrome in color again. In fact, I think we almost said that ourselves on the last time we met, which is just this. It's a nigh on impossible task, and yet you've done it. So congratulations, I've got to say.
But I mean, the thing here is that I have banded around. I've posted my methods and the formulas, and let everybody know exactly how it's done. I should probably write up the machine as well, so people can reproduce it. Really, more people doing this, the better, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, that's the next thing, which is that how are we going to replicate your results unless every single person builds their own machinery and goes through the astonishingly labor intensive process that you've devised. I don't think we're going to see a lot more people doing this because of the enormous outlay in equipment and everything else that they're going to have to put out to put together. I think you might well get besieged after this show by people saying, "I've just shot some Kodachrome. How much do you want to develop it?"
Yeah,
and there's a big gap between doing something at home in a Lomo tank for your proof of concept, and then actually having a machine that you can take people's films and put it through the machine and basically sort of reverse engineer the whole Kodachrome industrial process, which is possibly an even bigger job than proving it can be done. I mean, you and I, we're not photo labs. We're enthusiasts, and I don't expect that your next order of business is to buy an old Kodachrome machine or to build one that can be so you can develop other people's films through. Am I right?
I mean, that's before people get too excited. I mean that at this stage, the color developers and this is a problem right the way through Kodachrome, right up to the end. When you add the color the couplers to the developer, it immediately starts degrading and oxidizing, and so an hour or two after, you're not going to get any coupling because it's all.
Oh dear, they degrade quickly, do they?
Yeah. Well, it eats itself. So that's the state of play at the minute. So it's a one-shot. These are one-shot developers at the moment. Now, obviously, the thing to try next is to see whether you can replenish the developers, which I've had a go at actually. And that's obviously going to be a problem, because the result, when I've done 2 more films since this, and experimenting with things where I sort of expected it to fail, and actually it failed. Well, not entirely, but you don't get these results. So if you add more developing agent to it, to replenish it, and more coupler to replenish the coupler, what you get is a general stain. So if you have too much developing agent, you don't get the colours just forming in the layers where you want them to. They're all over the place, the whole thing.
Okay.
Right. So, and the early patents say that you have to have the same molecular weight of developing agent to coupler. So you can, at the beginning, when you make the developers, you can make sure that that's the case. But when you're replenishing, that's a level of science there that I don't possess. So at the minute, they're single. The color couplers, at least, are single use. So when you look at how long it takes to mix up the black and white first developer, the 3 color developers, the fix and the bleach, and the remjet remover, and the sort of stabilizer, I suppose,
and the loading of the LOMO and the reloading.
Oh, let's just think about the chemistry at the minute.
Just the chemistry.
That's 4 hours, to make the chemistry.
Just to make the chemistry.
To make the chemistry per cart. Now, obviously, if you're doing a batch of 7 or 8, you can do larger quantities and so on, but that obviously it's still got a limited shelf life. But there will be ways of getting that time down to a lower level. There may be things we can do in terms of adding antioxidants to the developers. So the newer Kodachrome uses hydroxyamine sulfate and diethyl hydroxylamine as antioxidants. Might be worth trying adding those to see what that does to the process. But at the moment, there's no way you could run this. I can't see this working through a machine because it dies. And I don't think machine processing I can't see how machine processing of Kodachrome movie film is viable, really, because I say this now, I might change the tune in a few months, but you have to, and this is what killed it, you have to have volumes going through it, because you're having to replenish the thing quite a lot, because they never really solved this problem of the couplers destroying themselves. You have to replenish it constantly, and so you have to have the volumes coming through to make that worthwhile. There's no point replenishing it whilst it's standing idle. So it's the only way that it's feasible at the moment is to do it like this, is to do it by hand. It's an inherently hand produced process, but that doesn't mean you can't use machines in it. Yes, there's a difference between if I use a drill or a drill and a chisel to make a table, the drill and the chisel don't make the table. I make the table. They're just tools that I use. Whereas if you go to a table making factory, that process is practically automated. The machines do make the table. The people help the machines make the table rather than the machines just helping the humans make the table. So I think where we are now is probably making a number of assistant machines, or a number of tools that make the parts of the process quicker and easier.
Right, right.
So,
Well, you're halfway there already with the stuff you've made.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
can see. Yeah, I mean, Barry Steinlager asks how long the whole process takes from end to end. You said 4 hours for the chemicals, but
Yeah.
then
The developing actually is getting quicker, and I can see that actually speeding up quite a bit with the introduction of more assist, with tools to assist. So it's 2.5 hours,
right,
which
okay.
is long, but it's not it's not completely unfeasible. But you're looking at 6 hours a cart,
Right.
and because the chemicals are one shot. And the colour chemicals form the bulk of the cost. So it's about 15 quid for the chemistry per cart at the moment. So, there's no way I'm going to be doing people's holiday films for them. This is, I think, as a process, its value lies in, well, if somebody, for instance, has a film that they found in a camera from the 60s, or they shot, some people shot footage towards the end of the life of Kodachrome and didn't get it developed in time. There'll be projects out there where it is legitimate to spend that amount of time, effort, and money in order to extract from that footage that is of historical significance.
Yeah. But if it was exposed some time ago, I mean, I know this from just doing it in black and white. Sometimes they've given me a cartridge to develop, and they've found it half shot in a camera, and then the other half they've just gone and shot themselves. The more recently shot stuff always looks better, in my experience. And so, if someone has a completely shot film from the 70s or whatever, I'm assuming it won't come out quite as well as something.
Depends how it's been stored. It all depends how it's been stored.
Really?
It depends where the camera's been. Cameras are effectively airtight, aren't they? Because they're light time.
Yeah.
So they've been in a camera's been sat in a cool place for. I mean, a friend of mine bought a camera, an 8mm movie camera at a flea market in France. Got home and there's some 1968 Kodachrome 2 sitting in the camera that had been shot. And so I did it in black and white for him. And the film, had even using peroxide as the bleach, which is not, which is actually quite rough for the emulsion. We got actually quite decent images from it. So if it's, the accident of where it's been stored and how it's been stored is a massive impact on the likelihood of you getting, the result, or how those results will be. Right. And because, you have to bear in mind, because it's basically 3 layers of black and white film, there are no couplers in the emulsion to degrade.
Okay.
Right, so I've had film from the 70s, Ektachrome film from the 70s, where you develop it in caffeinol and it's fine. You try and get colour out of it, you can't, because it's just degraded. The colour forming aspects of the film have degraded. So black and white is far more resilient to colour, and the fact that we're dealing with largely black and white film may mean that it's actually you may have a higher success rate.
Well, you say you're not going to be developing people's holiday snaps, but if someone said, "Look, I've got a historically significant roll of film here," I'm just thinking of a friend of mine showed me a camera recently that used to belong to the actor Anthony Quinn, and it was half shot with Kodachrome 2, and he believed it was shot around the time that Anthony Quinn was making some film with Peter Sellers. He said there could be Peter Sellers footage on this. So if someone came to you, said, "Oh man, my grandfather was in Dallas in 1963, and
on the grassy knoll.
On the grassy knoll on the other side." I mean, I'm sure it's just a matter of I'm sure if they just keep putting money on the table, at one point you'll say, "Oh, okay, that's worth it." That's.
Oh yes, I mean, in that context, okay, you think of the money that is spent on documentaries and filmmaking, Actually, there's some, that makes sense. The budget you have to develop your home movies or your, whatever you're shooting, or your experimental film, whatever, is going to be significantly less. So there is a sense in which it is possible. So, labs, I don't know how they'd feel about it, but labs like Film Rescue, International Film Rescue, I'm sure it's not entirely outside of their capacity to just take my details that I've put out online and try and do it themselves. It may be work. I can imagine it's feasible. All I'd say is that at the moment, asking me to process your film, you have to bear in mind that you're asking me to spend 6.5 hours of work, and it may not work. You do a black and white test, really, if you've got any sense. So you're not going to spend 6 hours for nothing. You just do spend an hour doing a black and white reversal test of a small section of it, and you can gauge it from there. So you're effectively doing two processes. So it's 6.5 hours. I'm not going to be doing that for minimum wage. No point being the only person on the planet that can do something.
Well, the point is, if you're the only person on the planet, you can charge a 2,000 quid a roll, and some companies might say yes, just so we can say in our publicity that some of this was shot on original Kodachrome and developed, in color by Adrian Cousins. I mean, that might be worth a couple of grand to some company. Who knows?
Possibly.
Yeah.
The main thing I'd say is that we've had a few false dawns with this. I think what happens is that Steve Frizzer was the first person I remember reading about doing this. The guy in Australia, and so we got some frames. And then that was it. He never did. We never heard anything more. And it's like we've done it. We crossed the finish line. That's it. And then there was of course, Kelly Shane.
Kelly Shane Fuller, yeah.
Did some. Is no longer doing it. And there was those old boys, the software company that produced a very nice. Color chart that they'd shot, and they basically thrown hundreds, must have been thousands of dollars at getting to that point. And then they're not. What's happening is nobody is taking this and using it in a creative way. They're not producing. They're not still producing work on it. They're not electing to shoot on Kodachrome and developing Kodachrome. So I think the important thing now, and so I think to a certain extent, when people hear about somebody developing Kodachrome in colour, it's a little bit, we've heard this before to a certain extent. The important thing is to produce stuff with it. Is to shoot stuff on it. So this year, that's what I'm going to be doing as the main thing, is to produce work on Kodachrome, because there's no way the process will develop without that happening. And actually, that was the original impetus for doing this, was not just to say, "Yay, I can do this," but to actually to produce some work using Kodachrome.
But you said the last time we spoke, you said there's a perfectly good color film out there in Ektachrome.
Yeah.
That there's no reason not to use Ektachrome if you just want color Super 8. Kodak are not going to put. They have not reformulated and reintroduced Ektachrome with all the risks and attendant risks and costs associated with that. They're not going to bring out another color reversal film that directly competes with that. They're not going to reintroduce Kodachrome, as far as I can see. But they've relinquished the patent, right? So Innovascoat, or Orwo, or somebody
Or in fact, and this is the beauty of Kodachrome, because you're not embedding couplers in the emulsion. You're just producing 3 layers of differentially sensitized black and white emulsion on top of each other. I think the technical bar for producing this film is much lower than it is with incorporated color films.
Okay.
Yeah. So it means that because the bar is lower, it means that the size of the companies that could possibly do that could be lower. That the technical demands are slightly less.
Yeah, but of course you're shifting the work onto the processing.
That's right. This is what Ron Mowry said, that if you look at Kodachrome, it's actually a very simple film, but the process is incredibly complicated. But you look at C41 film, ECN2 film, modern color reversal, they're all actually very complicated films, much more complicated than Kodachrome, but the processes are really simple. ECN2 is practically, apart from the developing agent, is composed of stuff you have lying around the house. So I can't see Kodak going for it, but I can see the possibility of smaller operators taking advantage of the fact that with you can produce a single film, but by using different couplers and different developing agents and developing it in different ways, you can get several different types of effect out of the same film.
Of course, yeah. You could just mess around with one of the emulsion layers and one of the colors, and
false color.
You could mess around with the frequencies of the blue and red lights, I guess, as well. And
well, I mean, with Kodachrome, and this is built into Kodachrome, that sensitivity is fixed. So you would want, that's something you would want to keep.
All right, leave those alone. Okay,
that's Kodachrome. But whatever people make, I'd imagine that will still be the case. That there will be fixed sensitivities that you're trying to aim for. But I think it's potentially possible. And I think I know the environmental arguments are used quite often to explain why Kodachrome doesn't exist. I'm not convinced by them. At the moment we incorporate color couplers in emulsions. So unless your film is entirely black, a big quantity of those couplers that we incorporate are never used. Any area of your film that is light or pale, a section of those couplers are not being used. So what we're doing is effectively incorporating whole lakes of chemistry into film that is not actually going to be used and can't be recovered. With Kodachrome, you put the couplers in the developing solution. Only the areas of the film that require where the coupler is needed use the coupler. The coupler that is unused goes back into the developing solution and can be recovered and reused. Right. So actually, theoretically, it's more it's ecologically better, I think, potentially, if you build into the process of processing the film, the act of recovery. So you recover the silver and you recover the coupler. That potentially, I think, it looks to me like it could be as ecologically viable, if not more so, than the current ways of making films.
Yeah. Well, I'm always happy to see new stocks being developed. Being not just physically developed, but being people coming out with new stocks. But of course, classic Kodachrome, there's a finite amount of it out there at the moment. Are you aware of stocks dwindling? Is it getting harder to get hold of now, or is it still lots of it out there?
I get the impression we're getting near to the bottom of the barrel, actually, with as far as the States are concerned, at least. When you think about film photography project, there was some sort of discussion about, they, by the looks of it, they get loads of films sent to them that are just like vinegar. People have bought probably inflated prices on eBay, and they're just rubbish.
K2 and horrible stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, stuff that hasn't been stored well and so on and so forth. So, and I think there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of rubbish out there. Don't pay more than 10 or 12 quid for Kodachrome.
Oh, God,
really.
no.
Yeah. And there are people out there selling cards for like, 30 or 40 quid.
Yeah.
That they've got out of a camera that they found. So they're not even in foil.
Yeah.
Don't buy that shit. It just encourages them. But, I also think there's probably a large bunch of people out there who have got it sitting in their freezers and who put it in their freezers in 2010 and were thinking, well, maybe, the process will come back and have sort of kept the faith, as it were, and have kept them in their freezer or kept them in their fridge. And, it might be the case that if some colour processing is available at some sort of price on the same continent where you happen to live, so you're not sending it abroad, it may mean that people start, we might see stuff starting to come out of those freezers and be used.
Sure.
But yeah, we might, this might be the end of it. I don't know. I suspect we will, we will find people will be digging out Kodachrome or finding Kodachrome that they want to develop in colour. And I think there was the discussion on the Super 8 Facebook page about this recently. And, what about the idea of developing it as a black and white reversal and then using the AI software to colorize it?
Oh, like the old Ted Turner, was it Turner Classic Movies colorization, that kind of thing. I don't
know, I've seen a lot of people on Facebook. There's you can see lots of clips where people have clearly taken black and white footage and passed it through some software which is used intelligent software to determine what color things should be. They're a bit rough, really. They're not, they get the colors quite, we don't know. You're just assuming what color somebody's shirt is, or the software is just doing that. We don't know what it is. We don't, and that actually could be quite an important historical detail, brown shirts or black shirts or green shirts.
There could be a difference there.
So that colour, that potentially important historical detail of the information, and that information will be contained within the film. So unlocking that information and making it available via colour process, I think I think that's where the potential for this lies. But who knows what we're going to be saying in a year?
Well,
from now,
in a year from now, I hope we're going to be saying, Adrian, you've built the machine, and you're open for business, and we've and for 20 quid a roll. No. But I really, I'm watching. And with bated breath as to the next finessing that you do of your process, and how good it's gonna. If this is how we are now compared to last year, next year we might I don't know. I've a huge amount of faith in you. I don't want to put pressure on you, Adrian, but from what I've seen already, I think you're the one to watch. For the cutting edge of Kodachrome progress.
Thanks, Ducky.
And I'm sure all the people on the chat will echo that. There's been, I don't know if you've got the Facebook page open, but there's been some very lively discussion based on the subjects that we're coming out with. We're touching on the restoration of Doctor Who says. People sell older expired Ektachrome stuff for the same price as the new stuff. Bloody joke.
Yeah.
And then Manny says, what is that old stock priced as new? You're going to find, chancers selling this stuff. But, but as far as I'm aware, I've only ever seen one chancer who's claimed that he can develop it in color. Some guy popped onto the Super 8 Facebook group for about a day. with some very suspicious color Kodachrome that looked like it was shot 30 years ago and claimed to have developed it just recently.
Well, the fact that he'd got very professional looking dissolves between shots sort of gave the game away. I think,
But I mean, I think those people are going to get found out very quickly, and at least by the slightly more discerning Super 8 filmographer. So anyway, listen, Adrian, I think we're going to leave it there. We have I'm going to have to go back and watch my own show just to pick up on all the stuff that I might have missed. And but I'm extremely happy to have had you on. I feel like I've got a scoop here, and it's something that I still can't believe the mainstream news sources haven't picked up on yet. Maybe I've got an inflated opinion of how important a step this was, but it absolutely was. If you look into it, you know exactly how complicated this process that you've put together is, and all the different steps, and the machinery, and the remjet in the dark in particular. It's been incredibly impressive.
Hard as getting a few litres of unleaded, though, is it? Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Maybe we'll find out that was the missing ingredient that's for developing. But yes, it's been great having you on, and thank you very much all the people who've commented as well. Adrian, I'm gonna let you go, but the show will limp on for another few minutes because I've dug out some old school Kodachrome, which I'm gonna play. I'm gonna show just so we know what we need to get back to. But thank you, Adrian. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
And we're all waiting to see what's next.
Keep the questions coming.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, I'll say goodbye, Adrian, there, and we'll get back to the end of the show. Which, I mean, damn, this has been a. Whoops. Let's show it one more time there. Like I said, I didn't think it would take 10 years. I thought it would take like another 20 years before we saw anything like this. So, well done, Adrian. Amazing stuff there. So, what do we finish off with? You know what we finish off with is a little bit of film. God, we've gone for an hour and 42 minutes. Holy crap. So, there's just to prove to you that's live, that's my wall there. I'm going to turn a couple of lights off, and we're going to see a little bit of Kodachrome back from the old days. Let's have some, I'll put some music on while I get the place ready. Everyone, hang on. One light off. There's another light off. Oh, it's getting good now. What we're going to see is a Kodachrome that I shot in 1994 on a holiday to, I was in Munich in Germany, and then I was in Vienna, and I took my Canon 514 XLS with me, because basically back in 94 video cameras were still heavier than Super 8 cameras. So let's see what we got.
All right, here we go. On the macro, we've got the KFZ Kraftfahrzeug Kleinanzeigen of Munich. We're looking for a little camping van.
That's my mate Tom, and he hasn't changed in 20-something years. I think it could do with a bit of focusing there. Hello, who's this handsome gentleman here? So yes, this is Munich. Train to Vienna. I might have to mute this a bit later because there's some naughty words. I fully expect Adrian's next accomplishment to look as good as this. Ben Reynolds says, best live show on the internet. Thank you, Ben. I'm down to doing home movies here. God, we could just fool around with Super 8. We were so cavalier with Kodachrome back in the day. We could just film each other.
Beginning to fall apart.
What am I talking about? What kind of hair have I got back then? I don't know. Lovely scenic Vienna.
Our quest is at an end. Das ist ein Wurstelstand.
That's my mate Dom. They still have the same announcements on the public transport. The Vienna Prater, everyone.
Jesus, what the fuck is wrong with that eyes?
Okay, yeah, we were
What is the fucking story? Oh Jesus, look at his fucking eyes.
Okay.
I'm gonna beat the fucking bollocks off this fucking.
Okay, right. There's a bit of that guy's called the Vak. That's the the Vaction man. There was this guy, this thing in Vienna that you just hit as hard as possible, and oh my God, I met my wife on that trip. This is a historical piece of Super 8 for me. Yeah, and this was me on the train going back from Vienna. Ah well, this is coming to an end in a sec.
Prinz Eugen willkommen. Wünschen Ihnen eine angenehme Reise. Den Fahrplan und die Serviceleistungen dieses Zuges entnehmen Sie bitte dem Fahrtblatt Ihr Fahrplan. Für weitere Informationen stehen wir Ihnen jede.
Okay. Oh, enough of that. Oh boy, I'm glad that worked. Now, when is my next camera show? The next camera show, let's have the end credits on here. When am I next on? Thursday, 7 in 1 week. Oh my God, we're back weekly. At least next week we are. At least for next week. I'd like to thank Adrian Cousins, of course, again. And thank you all for tuning in. This has been a historic show. This has been amazing. I predict the ratings on this show is going to be higher than any one I've done before. Because Kodachrome has been developed in color. Don't anyone tell you, if anyone says, oh no, they can't do it in color anymore, you say, no, it can be done in color, and it has been done in color, so you're wrong. Adrian did it. Anyway, thanks all for joining in. Thanks Adrian. I'll see you next week. I haven't decided whether to do next week about cameras or projectors. Ooh, projectors. I might do a show all about projectors. Then again, this is Ben's camera show, so we should get back to some cameras. I've got some cameras. During the hiatus, I got some cool cameras to show you all. Vladimir Strozov says, glad to see you, colleagues. Big greetings from Ukraine. Yay, it's been a worldwide gathering tonight. Greetings to you, Vladimir, and everyone else. I'm sorry if you asked a question, I didn't get to it. But, hey, I'm around. ZeroBudgetFilmSchool.com. You can contact me through there. And if you want Adrian to develop a color Super 8 just for you, dig deep into your pockets. Because the man's an artist. He's not a photo lab. I've done enough shouting. Bye, Manny. Bye, Barry. Bye, everyone else. And I'll see you next week. Oh, boy, I'm going to have a nice long drink now. And maybe eat a haggis. How do I switch this off? I'm rusty. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. There we go. end stream. See ya!